Imagine starting an online bookshop with a few desks in a garage and turning it into a company worth over $1 trillion on the stock market. That is the story of Amazon and Jeff Bezos. In this video, we are going to walk through how Amazon went from a small idea with around $10,000 in early seed money to one of the most powerful empires in business. We will not just list dates and events. We will focus on the decisions, the mindset, and the systems that allowed this company to grow for almost 3 decades. As you listen, think about how these principles apply to your own projects, even if you are starting from zero. To understand the Amazon story, we need to go back to 1994. Jeff Bezos was not a broke dreamer. He was a successful senior vice president at a Wall Street hedge fund in New York. On paper, he already had what most people would call a great life: high salary, prestige, a clear career path. But he saw a new trend that almost everyone else was ignoring. He read a report that said internet usage was growing by more than 2,000% per year. That number would not leave his head. He started asking a simple question. If the internet is going to be that big, what kind of business could exist only because this technology exists? Bezos made a list of products that could be sold online: music, software, office supplies, and books. He chose books for a very practical reason. There were millions of different book titles in print, far more than any physical bookstore could hold. An online store, connected to wholesalers, could stock all of them digitally. That meant huge selection without huge rent. It was not a romantic decision about loving literature. It was a strategic decision about scale and logistics. Once the idea was clear, he faced the first real empire builder choice: stay comfortable in New York or walk away and start again from almost nothing. He decided to leave. He drove across the United States to Seattle with his wife, writing parts of the business plan in the car. Seattle was chosen because it was close to a big book distributor and had a growing tech scene. In the early days, Amazon was not some flashy campus. It was a rented house and then a garage. Desks were made from cheap doors placed on top of metal legs. The starting capital was small. Jeff put in savings and his parents invested roughly their retirement money because they believed in him. Even after he warned them, there was a high chance they would lose it. This is an important point. The empire started with modest money and a very high tolerance for risk. From day one, Bezos focused on something that would define Amazon forever: customer obsession. The first version of the website was simple and even ugly by today's standards. But it did one thing very well. It made it easy for customers to search for books, order them, and receive them quickly. Inside the tiny warehouse in Seattle, employees picked books from shelves, packed them on the concrete floor, and drove them to the post office themselves. Bezos was famous for jumping in to pack boxes at 2 in the morning. He answered customer emails personally and read complaint letters himself. The message to his tiny team was clear: if we take care of customers better than anyone else, growth will eventually take care of us. The early results were promising but not magical. In the first month, Amazon sold books to people in all 50 US states and in dozens of countries, all through word of mouth and early internet buzz. Sales climbed from a few $1,000s a week to 20,000, then 50,000, then more. There was no advertising budget. The website itself was the salesperson. They reinvested almost everything back into inventory, software, and people. There were no big profits, no big salaries, just growth and reinvestment. This is a pattern you will see again and again in the Amazon story. Whenever there was a choice between short-term profit and long-term growth, Bezos chose growth. In 1997, only 3 years after launch, Amazon went public on the stock market. Many people thought an online bookstore was a silly idea and said the company was wildly overvalued. Instead of defending the share price, Bezos wrote a famous letter to shareholders. In it, he said Amazon would focus on the long term, on market leadership, and on customer value, even if that meant volatile earnings. He openly told investors that profits would be low for a very long time. This level of honesty was unusual and risky, but it attracted the right type of partners. People who were willing to think in 10-year horizons instead of quarter by quarter. Then the dot-com bubble hit. In the late 1990s, hundreds of internet startups raised huge amounts of money with no real plans. When the bubble crashed around 2000, most of those companies disappeared. Amazon's share price fell by more than 90%. Newspapers predicted its death. But inside the company, the story was different. Amazon had real customers, real sales, and real infrastructure. They used the crisis to become more disciplined. Costs were cut, operations were improved, and new categories were added beyond books: music, electronics, toys, and more. While many competitors died, Amazon crawled through the chaos and came out stronger on the other side. A key concept that explains this growth is something Bezos called the flywheel. Imagine a heavy wheel that is hard to push at first but gets easier the faster it spins. For Amazon, the flywheel looked like this. Lower prices and better selection attract more customers. More customers attract more sellers to the platform. More sellers increase selection and allow Amazon to negotiate better deals, which leads to lower prices and faster delivery. Each part feeds the next. Instead of relying on one big marketing trick, Amazon built a system where every improvement added energy to the same wheel. This thinking led to bold decisions. Amazon invested billions into warehouses, packaging machines, and delivery networks so they could control more of the customer experience. They launched Amazon Prime, a subscription that offered fast, free shipping for a yearly fee. Many analysts thought Prime would be a financial disaster. Shipping is expensive, but Prime changed customer behavior. Members started buying much more, across many categories, because the friction of shipping costs disappeared. It was not just a shipping program. It was a loyalty engine that locked millions of customers into the Amazon ecosystem. At the same time, Amazon was quietly building something that would become a second empire inside the first one: cloud computing. In the early 2000s, the company had built so much server and data infrastructure for its own website that it decided to rent out that capacity to other businesses. This project became Amazon Web Services, or AWS. At first, it was just a way to make use of extra computing power. Over time, it turned into one of the most profitable and strategically important tech platforms in the world, powering everything from small startups to global corporations. Many people buying books and headphones on Amazon had no idea that a huge part of the company's income was coming from invisible servers. Another smart move was allowing third-party sellers onto the platform. Instead of Amazon buying every product and taking inventory risk, outside sellers could list their own products and use Amazon's traffic and logistics. Amazon would take a fee on each sale and sometimes handle storage and shipping through Fulfilled by Amazon. This turned Amazon from a simple retailer into a marketplace. The more sellers joined, the more selection customers saw, and the more fees Amazon collected without touching every product. Again, this fed the flywheel. Culture also played a big role in building the Amazon empire. Bezos pushed ideas like, "It's always day one," meaning the company should always act like a hungry startup, not a slow bureaucracy. Meetings were often based on quietly reading 6-page narrative memos instead of flashy slideshows. Leaders were expected to know details of their business, question assumptions, and measure everything. Frugality was celebrated. Early on, door desks were a symbol of saving money for things that mattered to customers. This culture was demanding and not always comfortable, but it kept the company fast in a world where size usually makes organizations slow. Over the decades, all these decisions began to compound. Revenue grew from a few $1,000s a week to tens of billions a year. The company expanded into new countries, launched devices like the Kindle and Echo, moved into streaming, groceries, and more. In 2018, after roughly 24 years of work, Amazon's stock market value briefly crossed $1 trillion. That number is not just about Jeff Bezos getting rich. It is about the market recognizing the power of a system that puts long-term growth, technology, and customer obsession at the center. So what can you actually take from this story for your own empire and money journey? First, big results can come from small, ordinary beginnings. Amazon started in a garage with simple furniture and a narrow focus: books. You do not need a perfect office or huge capital to begin. You need a clear problem to solve and the courage to start. Second, long-term thinking beats short-term comfort. Bezos walked away from a secure, high-paying job and spent years with little profit because he believed in the direction. Most people want empire results with employee mindset comfort. The two do not go together. Third, systems beat one-time tricks. Amazon's success is not one genius marketing campaign. It is a flywheel of price, selection, convenience, technology, and trust that keeps spinning. Ask yourself what flywheel you can build, even on a small scale. How can one good action in your business make the next action easier and more powerful? Fourth, be willing to reinvent. Amazon moved from books to the everything store, from retail to cloud computing, from selling its own products to hosting millions of sellers. If you stay locked into one identity, you limit your growth. Finally, remember that an empire is built decision by decision, year after year. The jump from $10,000 in seed money to $1 trillion company was not one big leap. It was thousands of small moves in the same direction, guided by a clear set of principles. You do not have to copy Amazon, and you probably cannot, but you can learn from the mindset. Start small, think long, focus obsessively on the value you give to customers, build systems that compound, and be willing to look stupid in the present to be right in the long term. This is how modest beginnings turn into something much bigger than one person, and how an idea that once lived on a road trip becomes an empire that touches almost every part of the global economy.